Hi, my name is Andrew Ashton, and today we'll be discussing ethical issues in research as pertaining to communication. First, the principles of scientific communication are clarity, meaning we can clearly speak and write what it is we're trying to convey. Accuracy, all data being used for our research should be accurately stated and represented to ensure that it is not used outside of its intended purposes and means. Simplicity, easily accessible reports and medical studies should be available. The more difficult it is to access these reports and data, the less direct and reputable our communication is. And finally, understandability. If all these other principles are covered, this should be pretty easily achieved. You want your audience to be able to understand the knowledge or information being reported in order to adequately convey the purpose and the meaning of that knowledge. Next, we'll be discussing the ethical implications in human research. The first and arguably one of the most important is do no harm. It is a researcher's responsibility to be aware of potential risks of harm to patients and minimize them. This includes physical or bodily injury, great emotional distress or psychological harm, legal harm, or damage to a person's reputation, career, or income. The next is to get voluntary consent from research participants. Participants should never be coerced into volunteering. Participants must be able to make an informed decision about their participation. Researchers can accomplish this by explaining participants' rights by providing them with an informed consent statement. The greater the risk to harm of the participants, the greater the need to obtain this written consent. The next is to never unnecessarily humiliate or degrade research participants. Aside from receiving informed and voluntary consent, extra protection should be afforded to special populations such as the homeless, disabled, prisoners, students, children, or any group who may not be able to give consent freely. Coercion and deception must be also minimized as best as possible, with both being used sparingly when necessitated by the research. The next is to never release harmful information about participants. Privacy, anonymity, and confidentiality are essential to biomedical research, as researchers are placed in a high position when collecting large amounts of personal information about their subjects. Information collected must be related to the purpose of the study, with violation of participants' privacy kept to a minimum. Anonymity is necessary so that no information can be traced back to the participants and used against them. This can be difficult, as information gathered, especially in small groups, can single individuals out, even without the use of names or primary identification factors. Even if anonymity can't be maintained, confidentiality should be. Confidentiality allows information to be assigned to specific participants, but prevents that information from reaching the public. Next, we'll discuss ethical issues of communication and research. The first, as previously discussed, is informed consent. This is essential to all forms of research. A brief description of the purpose of the research and procedure, including the time frame, should be included in an informed consent statement. Also, the risks and discomforts associated, a guarantee of anonymity and confidentiality of data records, identification of research and contact information in order to contact the researchers, a statement that participation is voluntary and that withdrawal anytime is possible, as no one should be forced to remain within the research. A statement of potential alternate procedures in case they are to be initiated, benefits or compensation that the participants are obliged to, and an offer of summary of findings once the participation is complete. This also helps protect participants from fraudulent research. Another ethical issue, as previously discussed, is deception and coercion. It should be avoided at all costs if possible, but at times may be considered necessary. To use in a research setting, you must have clear, specific methodological purpose. You must use it to the most minimal degree possible. You must obtain informed consent and not misrepresent the risks involved, and always debrief to explain actual conditions of what was researched. The last primary issue is invasion of privacy. As previously discussed, anonymity and confidentiality are two facets of privacy that must be adhered to and protected at all costs. Confidentiality must always be protected in order to avoid harm in the participant's personal life. Researchers have a great responsibility to protect the information they collect about each and every participant that is involved. Now, how do we communicate effectively within our scope of practice to both patients, families, and other team members. First and foremost, verbal communication. It should encourage patients and families to communicate by using open questions. Use first names or preferred names with patients and family. Speak in clear, complete sentences without jargon. When it comes to the healthcare team, use of jargon may be expected in order to properly convey information in a suitable manner. Nonverbal communication. You should always show interest by maintaining eye contact and nodding along. Smile, but don't stare. And sit down when possible, as this conveys openness to listening for long periods, and lean forward to show engagement with patients and families. This can also be applied to your team members. Use non-threatening body language. Try to keep an open stance with arms at your side and legs apart. Nonverbal cues also show active listening, very essential in both communicating with family, patients, and healthcare team members. Nod your head, but don't interrupt. Use minimal verbal encouragement such as "I understand" and go on. After going over a lot of information, it is important to make sure that it is understood. Patient teach backs are a great tool to use. Have your patient teach you exactly what information you gave to them. In another way, you can use this with your team members to ensure that they heard you. Ask them to repeat what you said and ensure that all information was conveyed adequately. As patients and team members are likely from multiple cultures, cultural competence is important to ensuring proper communication. Simply understanding somebody's religion or culture can help better understand how it is they're going to be wanted to be spoken to and how they're going to want to be treated. This is inclusive for all people in your team, patients, and family. You also want to inspire trust. It's as simple as being honest, straightforward with patients, families, and team members. This means always telling the truth and sharing information openly. You must be willing to admit your own mistakes and hold yourself accountable for the sake of the team and the patient. And finally, but not the least important, is being compassionate. This is essential to all healthcare interactions. Put yourself in the shoes of the patient, their family, or your team member. This can help resolve conflicts before they arise and create better relationships. Finally, it's important that written formal correspondence is well done to properly convey information and knowledge as necessary. One way you can do this is to be direct. It's important to convey exactly what you mean, whether it's an email to a team member or discharge instructions for the patients. This can help avoid misunderstandings and doublespeak. Speak directly to your audience. Think about what the audience cares about and what they're expecting to hear. It's up to the writer to ensure the audience understands what is being conveyed. For instance, if your writing is for the patient, jargon should be avoided. But if the writing is for the healthcare provider, you may want to use technical terms in order to cut corners and effectively speak. Pre-write and rewrite everything you do. No one's a perfect writer from the start. Write a rough draft and look for ways to improve the language and clarity of the message. Develop your message until it conveys exactly what you intend. Always commit to one thing or another. To communicate effectively, you must have convictions in your beliefs and provide evidence to support them. Agreeing with multiple opinions weakens your stance. Your use of expertise and knowledge to support your convictions and translates those convictions into writing. Practice. Take every professional correspondence seriously and practice effective writing in each of them. Whether it be an email, discharge instructions, or an opinion article for a publication, each is an opportunity to hone professional correspondence skills, eventually making them second nature. And finally, ask for feedback. If you aren't sure how to improve, ask. Identify where your writing is strong, but also identify where it is weak. Ask those who you're corresponding with or colleagues how you can improve. This can be done before you correspond by asking a team member, or you can ask somebody you've sent something to already where there are some issues and how you can clarify them. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful evening.